The night before the world changed, no one could sleep. In one camp, soldiers prayed, wrote final letters home, and sharpened their swords, their hands trembling with anticipation. A young soldier, barely 20, wrote by candlelight, "Mother, if you read this, I did not return. But no, I died with honor." In the other camp, they were already celebrating victory. The nobles of the Delhi Sultanate laughed and drank, confident in their overwhelming numbers. "Tomorrow, we crush this mountain dog. By noon, his head will decorate Delhi's gates," they boasted.
April 31st,
1526. Before the sun had risen, mist covered the plains of Panipat. Babur, the invader from Central Asia, stood alone on a small hill. He whispered to himself, "Today, I win everything, or lose everything." His commanders approached. "My lord, the men are ready." Babur turned to them. "Remember," he said, "we do not match their strength. We break their will." Babur had spent weeks preparing his position. He had chained together 700 wooden carts, creating a fortified barrier. Between the gaps, he placed his cannons and matchlock gunmen. This Ottoman-inspired tactic, the Araba, had one purpose: to force the massive enemy army to come to him. Meanwhile, in the opposing camp, Sultan Ibrahim Lodi was being dressed in armor worth a kingdom. A jeweled sword, a golden helmet, a royal elephant decorated with silk and gold. He looked like a god of war. Behind him, his massive army assembled. 100,000 men. 1,000 war elephants. It was the largest army India had seen in decades. From his position, Babur's 12,000 men looked impossibly small in comparison. A soldier next to him trembled. "My lord, there are so many." Babur placed a hand on his shoulder. "Numbers do not win battles," he said calmly. "Discipline does." Then he raised his voice, shouting to his men, "Today we fight not for kingdoms. We fight for our children, for our honor, for our names in history." A defiant roar answered him. The war drums began to pound. At 8 in the morning, the two armies faced each other across a mile of open plain. For 10 minutes, an eerie silence hung in the air. Then, Ibrahim Lodi raised his sword high and screamed, "Forward! Crush them!" The charge of 100,000 men sounded like the end of the world. A tidal wave of cavalry, infantry, and war elephants thundered across the field. In Babur's position, his men watched the wall of death approach. Their fear was visible. "Hold! Hold!" Babur commanded, his voice steady. The enemy closed in. 500 meters, 300 meters, 200 meters. Now Babur roared. Dozens of cannons fired at once. The explosions tore through Lodi's front lines. Men and horses were ripped apart. The elephants, who had never heard such thunderous sounds, panicked. Trumpeting in terror, they turned and stampeded back into their own ranks, crushing everything in their path. In 15 minutes, Lodi's greatest advantage became his curse. His center collapsed into chaos. As confusion paralyzed the Sultan's main force, Babur unleashed his masterstroke. His mobile cavalry wings, hidden on the flanks, swept around the sides. This was the tulughma, a classic Mongol tactic. Surround, compress, destroy. Lodi's army was squeezed into a tight, panicked mass, so compressed that his soldiers couldn't even swing their swords. 100,000 men became 100,000 targets. Babur's disciplined matchlock gunmen fired in organized volleys. The front rank fired, knelt to reload, and the second rank fired. A continuous, terrifying cycle of death. From atop his elephant, Sultan Lodi desperately tried to rally his men. "Stand and fight. You are warriors of Delhi." But his voice was lost in the chaos. His nobles began to flee. "Retreat, save yourselves." Panic spread like fire. Seeing his army disintegrate, Ibrahim Lodi dismounted his elephant, grabbed a sword, and charged into the fray on foot. "I am your sultan. Fight with me," he screamed. He died the way he lived, proud, stubborn, and ultimately, alone. A Mughal soldier struck him down. The Sultan of Delhi fell, his crown rolling in the dirt. By 3 p.m., it was over. The field was a vision of hell, covered with 20,000 dead and dying. Babur walked through the carnage, his face grim, not triumphant. He stopped at the body of Ibrahim Lodi and knelt, gently closing the Sultan's eyes. "You fought with courage," he said quietly. "May God have mercy on your soul." A commander approached. "My lord, we have one. Delhi is yours." Babur stared at the horizon. "No," he replied, "I have not won. I have only survived." His soldiers began looting the battlefield, collecting the immense treasure of the Delhi Sultanate. A soldier found Lodi's crown in the mud and brought it to Babur. He took it, feeling its weight, but he did not put it on. That night, in his tent, Babur wrote in his famous diary, the Baburnama. "Today I became king of Hindustan," he wrote. "But I have gained a throne I never wanted, in a land I do not know, speaking a language I do not speak. I am 52 years old. I have spent 40 years in war, and I am so tired." A single tear fell on the page. Days later, Babur entered Delhi. The city surrendered without a fight. He ascended the throne in the Red Fort. For 25 years, he had dreamed of this moment. He had lost kingdoms, been betrayed, starved, and fought impossible wars. Now he sat on a throne that might finally be his. And yet, looking out at his new, unfamiliar domain, he whispered to himself, "What have I done?" Standing on the roof of the fort at sunset, his son Human joined him. "Father, you have won. The empire is yours." Babur turned to him. "I have not won an empire, my son. I have inherited a responsibility. These people did not ask for me. They do not love me. They fear me. Now I must earn what I have taken." The Battle of Panipat lasted just 8 hours. But from one man's ambition and one morning's violence, a new power would rise, the Mughal Empire, which would shape the destiny of India for the next 300 years. But every empire begins with blood, and that was a price Babur would never forget. Thank you for watching. If you found this journey into history compelling, please like this video and subscribe for more stories of the figures who shaped our world. See you next time.